Does it have to be your bank? Does the lender have to be the bank you're currently using?
Oh, no, not at all. In fact, my bank did not give me a mortgage eventually.
Oh, really? Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Laju. I'm a Nigerian living in the UK. If you're a new subscriber, you're highly welcome. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like this video. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much. Today we'll be talking about buying a house in the UK as a first-time buyer, of course. And when I say we, I mean we, because I have with me a guest appearance once again. But before I introduce her, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and feel free to share. So today I have with me here Dr. Abaye Esua, popularly known as Dr. Habi Likita. Thank you so much for coming here today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. She's a GP trainee in the East of England Deanery, who recently bought her first house in the UK, and she'll be sharing with us her experience and what we need to know and do before we buy a house in the UK. So I'm super excited. I don't know about you guys, but stick with me and let's get right into today's video.
Thank you, Laju.
Yes, you're welcome. So I believe in order to buy a house in the UK, there are two major ways you can go about it. Either you put your cash down or you go by the mortgage route. And I believe that most of us will be going through the mortgage route. And that's why I would like you to share your experience with us today. My first question for you, Dr. Abby, is this. To apply for a mortgage, what do you need to do? Like, what steps do you have to take before you even apply for the mortgage?
I would say that I don't know if I can be the authority, quote unquote, for buying a house, but I can say the things that helps me because I sought counsel from quite a few people.
Yeah.
And the first thing I would say is get your credit history on point. Okay. You have to have a very good credit score. You have to know what it is. You have to know the things that are hitting it negatively and positively, and know how to keep that credit score high and stable, at least until you buy your house or until you get your mortgage.
How did you go about applying for your credit history, your credit score? How did you check it and keep it up to date?
So what I did was I registered with Experian. There is the free registration and then there's one that is paid. I went for the paid one because I wanted to have a full credit report every month. I wanted to be able to look into my credit history and see what was going on. Okay. Another thing I did was that I registered with the electoral roll. So I had my name on the electoral roll to say, you know, this person is eligible to vote and has this address, you know, attached to her name. And then I also had to get a credit card from my bank and got a credit card, make sure I pay the bills off every month. It's not that I had to pay because I had a time purchase free credit card, but I decided that I needed to pay off that credit card so that I will show a low percentage usage, which was positive for my credit score.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. So I believe Experian, their credit score providers, am I correct?
Yes, I think, yes, basically, that's what they do.
Yeah. So how long before you applied for, how long did you use Experian for before you applied for the mortgage?
I was, between the time I began to prepare to say I wanted to get a mortgage and when I actually got the mortgage, it was about a year. So I was registered with Experian for that period.
What else did you have to do? Anything else before you applied for the mortgage?
Before I applied, I first of all had to decide where did I want to buy a house, for example, and looked at those areas, looked at just basically the type of house that I wanted, the reason why I was looking at houses, not because I even wanted those houses per se, but because I wanted to get into viewing houses. I know that a lot of things have changed now because of Corona and everything, but then you could just book to view a house. So I booked to view houses. Sometimes I'll book to view with the agent. Sometimes I'll book to view with the vendor, which are the people selling the houses. And I found out that booking with the vendors, you get a lot more information because of course they're trying to lure you into buying the house. So they're telling you things like, well, we've serviced our boilers, we've put in double glazed windows, we've done that. And I used to write those things down because it gave me an idea of what to ask when I go to the next viewing and the next viewing. Then the agents as well, they would lure you to come and use their brokers. They will say, come and talk to our mortgage brokers, no fee, nothing, just talk to us first. And then when you decide to use us or when you decide to go for the house, then you can engage with our mortgage brokers and pay the money.
Yeah.
I said, no, I'll go with every agent. I'll go and see the mortgage broker. I will sit down. They will tell me what to look out for. I will ask them questions. So I just began to amass information like that. These were the things I was doing before I got my mortgage. So by the time it wasn't like, I'd seen the house, then I decided I want to go and get a mortgage.
Okay.
No, I decided, and then I began to search. And in the process of searching, I didn't wait until I found the house. I was just getting information. For me, I always believe that information is everything.
Yeah,
so
true.
because I had spoken to a few mortgage brokers, they gave me a list of the things that I needed, of the fees that I needed to pay. So with that list, I had an idea of how much it would cost me apart from my deposits.
Okay.
So the solicitor's fees and all that. Some of them would even put stamp duty. Even though I knew that I wasn't supposed to pay any stamp duty because it was the first time, I was the first time buyer and the house was under a certain amount. But I would just allow them give me the list like that so that I would look at it and then I began to compare. Who were the people that give me what solicitors, conveyance, look at the list and everything that land use, all the prices that they would give me. And then I had a rough idea of how much it would cost me apart from my deposits.
Okay. All right. So you also mentioned solicitor. Did you need to get a solicitor in the process?
Yes. For me, I got a solicitor early. And the only reason I did that was because I was conscious of the fact that not all banks will give tier 2 visas.
Okay.
A mortgage. Some of them would say they have to give you a mortgage as a tier 2 visa holder. You have to pay at least 25% deposits. And me, I knew 25%.
Really?
So I thought to myself, okay, what are the things that I need in order to, buttress my position or my stand?
Yeah.
The reason I picked solicitor was because someone had said, giving me a link to say I use a solicitor, very thorough and all that, and I decided I think I need a thorough solicitor because I felt you're going in blindly. You don't know anything about the house. You don't know anything about the history.
True.
You're buying a termite infested house. You really don't know anything. You don't know anything about the laws of the land, nothing. So what I thought was I'll get a solicitor early, even though I had not yet gotten the mortgage that I wanted. A lot of people would go ahead and apply first before they start asking you for a solicitor, then you get a solicitor. But I got the solicitor because I wanted, okay, let's sort that one out. But you see, that almost backfired because there are some banks that will not deal with some solicitors. I'll give you an example. There are some banks that will say they need a panel of they have a panel of solicitors that they work with, and they will not answer that panel of solicitors. So if you don't now know who you are going with, you may not know which panel of solicitors to choose from. So what I did was that I went with a solicitor who had a small firm. So she was not that well known to be added to the panel of solicitors. But because I had gotten the assurance that she was thorough, I went with her anyway. And then when I now got the bank that I had decided I was going to get a mortgage from, or that was going to give me a mortgage, my solicitor had to then engage with their own panel of solicitors, which kind of made it like double billing. Yes, it kind of made it like double billing. But I preferred to still stay with my solicitor. So I'll pay my solicitor, and then I also have to pay the panel of solicitors indirectly as well.
Okay.
I eventually pay the panel of solicitors, but I prefer that because the choice I had was either to choose a solicitor from the panel of solicitors and go with that person, or to pay my solicitor, who then choose the solicitor that I will go with there and then work with that one.
Okay.
And that was what I did. And I don't have any regrets with that because if I had the opportunity again, I would go with that same solicitor.
All right. Another question I have for you, Dr. Abaye, is does it have to be your bank? Does the lender have to be the bank you're currently using?
Oh, no, not at all. In fact, my bank did not give me a mortgage eventually.
Oh, really?
like I said, if you have a tier 2 visa, some people had told me that, oh, you can't get a mortgage until you are like 5 years in the country. But then I realized all those ones were myths that were probably true in the past, but you know, time had overtaken them. So there were other newer laws and guidances that people followed. My bank had said that they will not give someone with a tier 2 visa unless you can put 25% deposit down.
Yeah.
I had a tier 2 visa, there was nothing I could do about that.
Yeah.
25%. So what I did was I then went with mortgage brokers.
Oh, okay.
Went online looking for mortgage brokers that had history of dealing with doctors and tier 2 visa holders.
Okay.
I worked with those mortgage brokers, but eventually I didn't use them. And I didn't use the one, they were supposed to be free and they get their fees from the lenders, but I didn't use them because they eventually were discouraging me from going with the lender that they had initially chosen for me or got for me. I didn't bother to find it. I just canceled the application with them and went directly to the lenders, and I got my mortgage that way. So I know it sounds complicated and twisted, but the truth is, not everybody's path will be smooth. When my bank gave me a mortgage, I went to them, paid my 10%, and it was fine. There are a lot of people that their bank will not give them a mortgage and have to go out. So it's about knowing which lenders will give tier 2 visa holders. And the most popular of them is Halifax, even though Halifax is not the only one. There's also the way they calculate doctors' pay. They calculate, you know how it is when we say we have a basic salary, and we have all the other allowances and all that. There are many banks that will say they only calculate the basic salary. So they will calculate how much they can lend you based on the basic salary. And that brings me to what we call a decision in principle.
Okay.
When you know that you want to get a mortgage and you want to get a mortgage application, you can approach the bank and say, I want to get a mortgage from you, and they give you a decision in principle. Based on the information you give them, they will give you a document that says, we can lend you this amount. Not that we will lend you. It's possible to lend you this amount. That document is valid for, I think, 3 months. And that's the document you can then take to agents to say, but the agents will ask you, you want to view our house. How do we know that you're serious? You then say, I have a decision in principle from a bank that says that they can actually lend me this money. And the information we provide for that decision in principle is not a lot of information, but it's something that at least the bank is able to say, well, we can lend you this money.
We are willing.
We are willing to, but it's subject to further scrutiny by our underwriters.
Okay.
So you take that and use that with agents to say, okay, I'm looking at houses and I'm serious about getting it. And of course, let's not forget about the deposits.
Yeah.
You have to have deposits. Before COVID, a lot of people do 5% deposit, 10% deposit. Some people do have to buy of 25%, was it 20%? With your own 5%. 20% with your own 5% for new builds or for refurbished buildings.
Okay.
But with COVID, a lot of things are changing. A lot of banks don't typically do 10% anymore because they are looking at the equity and looking at how much you bear most of the initial cost in case anything goes wrong. Okay. So a lot of banks are encouraging you to maybe put down 15% or more. But the advice I got when I wanted to get my house and put down my deposit, even though I was planning 10%, I remember a friend of mine said to me, you have to save at least 15% if you want to put 10%. Because remember, we talked about the fees and everything that it would cost to get your mortgage, your solicitors, conveyance fees, all those fees are on one side. And then what if you eventually get a mortgage application in and they tell you based on your salary, we can't lend you the 90%. This is how much we lend you. That deficit, you still have to cover it.
You have to make up for it.
You have to make up for it, especially if you really want that house. So you just put down a bit more than the 10% so that you know that when you're going in there, you make allowances for, it might not be exact. When you start looking for a house, you may see a house that you like, but it may not be that house that you eventually buy.
Yeah, true.
Because time goes in, and then before you know it, by the time you start applying and everything, that house may still be on market. The person might tell you, I'm sorry, even when you have even gotten your application and you've already started, the person may tell you, I'm sorry, somebody else has come to buy the house. They are not under any obligation to sell it to you, and you are not under any obligation to buy it. The only time people have gotten to a point where you have to keep to your obligations is after you have exchanged contracts. And that's just a few days before you actually buy the house. Everything before that, you can pull out anytime. And the vendor, the person selling the house, can pull out anytime.
All right. Thank you for that. Just to take you back a bit, you mentioned something about, checking your credit score and everything. What do you think? What are the things that can affect one's credit score that one should be wary of?
The thing that affects your credit score are things like anybody that does a hard search on your credit, it affects your credit score. It may be by a few points, or it may be significant, but it negatively affects your credit score, brings it down a little. I'll give you an example. You want to take a loan for whatever reason. You want to take a credit card. You open another account. You want to buy a car on loan, or you want to make another huge purchase on loan, and they have to do a credit score. Some people even do a credit score for telephone bills. And those things, they have to do a hard search on your credit. And hard searches are some of the things that bring your credit score down. Okay. So when you're ready to buy, when you're thinking of buying a house and you're building your credit history, you really don't want to make any huge purchases that would do a hard search and knock your credit down. You want to make sure that you are paying your credit bills and direct debits and everything at when due. You don't want to default so that it doesn't negatively impact, because it will show your credit history. I think we talked about electoral roll. Getting on the electoral roll is positive. Having a credit card that you pay off every month, having direct debits, those things are positive. How much percentage of your credit card you use is also good. I'll give you an example. When I got my first credit card, my bank gave me a credit limit of 7,500, and I panicked. I talked to the bank that I wanted to reduce it. But one of my friends said, no, that would mean that if you're not going to use so much of it, that will mean that the percentage of your credits, of your available credit that you're using, will be very low. That's positive on your credit. So if I even had a low limit on my credit card, it would have been a good time to increase it so that it will show that I'm using a low percentage of my available credit. So using a low percentage on your available credit is good. Okay. All right. Thanks. That's very helpful to know. So you had done all that, then you applied for the mortgage with the help of your solicitor, I believe. One thing I would like to say is all your documents should be consistent. For example, you know how it is when you're doing drop down, when you're filling your address online. Sometimes it may not show that you're having A, B, C, D, E on the address. It may just show number 10. So I'll give an example. Dixon Road. I read number 10E, but there was no A, B, C, D, E. So I found out that there were some of my documents that had 10E, and there were some of my documents that just had 10. So like my driving license, and I remember my phone bill only had 10. And because I needed proof of address and different things, documents that I needed to show when I was putting in the application, I had to then, fill an online form to DVLA to say I want to change my address. And insisted that I wanted to be written as 10E Dixon. 10. Yes, and that was important. That was the fact that I had hospital accommodation. So a lot of things like no council tax, no bills in your name per se. So that's why it was important that I had a driving license. I had other letters from my bank statements sent to the house at a point, and they all have to be within a certain period. Anything more than 3 months or so, they
They
won't
won't,
accept.
they won't accept it.
So
Okay,
by
so
the time,
all right.
uh-huh.
So my question was like, after you had done all that, you now applied for the mortgage with the new lender, another bank. So basically, was it straightforward from then to then get the house?
It's almost as if everything that I could tick, I ticked it all, positively and negatively. The
Wow.
hospital application was an issue because I really didn't have all those documents that they asked for per se. And remember that I'm also on a tier 2 visa. So I decided, you know what, the mortgage broker is not helping me. I'm going direct to the bank. I went direct to the bank and I talked to their mortgage advisors. And the mortgage advisor was like, oh, you have your deposit, you have your this, so everything should go smoothly. So she got all my documents. And then I said, oh, I have a letter from my employer. She said, I don't think you need it. I said, keep it, take it and collect it and keep it first. I think there was some other document, I can't remember what other document I had. And she said, well, I don't think you need it. I said, take it and keep it first. By the time this lady now, because remember that the bank is going to say we are willing to lend you, but it's subject to underwriters. So when I now found the application, they said it's subject to underwriters. Every single document that you can ask for, the underwriters asked for. Every single thing. Letter from your employer. In fact, after I applied, they now said this is not the format that they want from the employer. Right there in their presence, I called my lead employer office and said, excuse me, this is the document they're asking for. She said, we've sent it. I said, yes, but they said they don't want it in this format. And she said, this is the format we send nationwide, and we have always sent. We cannot change the format because of one bank.
Because of one bank.
Yes. And the mortgage advisor heard her on the phone like that, and I deliberately called her in the presence, and she realized, well, there's nothing I can do, but we'll take it and we'll see how it goes. So everything went on, and then eventually they sent me a message and said, yes, we are happy to lend you this money. So the amount that they were willing to lend me was just under 10%. Sorry, 90%.
90%, yes.
So my decision to keep more than 10% just in case.
It paid off.
It paid off. Because they said, this is how much we can lend you. Initially, they wanted to just use my basic. And I said, it's not the nurses, style where you pick up shifts. My job does not allow me to work only day shifts. I work in shifts that are not by choice. So you have to add everything into that. I think that was the second document I said I gave to my mortgage advisor from the bank. It was a P60? It was a P60, which means the tax history, whatever, my tax history for the previous year. So I gave her my P6 and she said, oh, we don't need that. Just your pay slips and everything and bank statements was enough. And I said, no, hold it first. So when they now said they were only going to use my basic, I then said, where's my P60? To prove that, and I can give you the one before that and the one before that. To prove that this is not just shifts that I'm picking up. This is how much I earn in total.
Yeah, the full time.
So exactly. This is in the last tax year. This is how much I earned, to show that I had more than that basic. I earned much more than the basic they wanted to calculate. And it helped with my case again. So when it was to give me the mortgage, they said, oh yes, they sent me an email. Oh yes, we're ready to give you on so and so day. So it was time to exchange contracts. Now, in all this time, I had seen a house that I liked. I had gone to view it. I met with the vendor and we just hit it off. Lovely lady, lovely family. And I think after I went in, I think I was the first person, and then somebody else came in, and then she said, you know what, I won't take the house off the market. I'm not happy to buy it.
Sweet.
Yes, that was very sweet of her. It was supposed to, they would say, well, 12 weeks it would take. I think it took about 5-6 months.
The mortgage application? Wow.
Because remember, brokers when talked directly to the bank, and then the bank was just delaying for no reason. Well, for no reason I could see anyway. But she held off, and she wasn't even bother. She just said, don't worry, if it eventually doesn't go through, then just put it back up on the market. And that was very helpful. It was very helpful. So when they eventually decided, okay, yes, we're ready to give you the money, at the last minute they pulled the funds.
They just said they were not. What was their reason?
My solicitor said, we woke up today, we're supposed to collect money. At the end of the day, we didn't see money. So we called them to say, we use the money because we're exchanging contracts tomorrow. Said, we have pulled the money. So I called this bank and said, excuse me, you people pull the money after I've exchanged contract. And I exchanged contract based on your email that said you are sending me the money. If you decided you have to send money, you should have sent me an email to say you're not sending me the money. Yeah. So you are the ones in breach of contract. I called the vendor, I told her, I said, see what's going on. She said, don't worry. I said, yes, I'm letting you know because I've used your name to say that the bank is going to have to settle with you. And long story short, we had to resubmit all the documents in my solicitor and the panel of solicitors of the bank I used. They had to submit all the documents again and submitted all the document, and they still released the money that day.
Wow. Something that took months, they released it that day.
So I really said it was grace. It was God Almighty. That's the truth.
Definitely.
But I said that to say that a lot of people don't go through that. But when you want to buy a house, you want to get a mortgage, there will be hurdles that you did not anticipate or you did not expect. I personally did not use a surveyor, but some people use surveyors to look at the houses.
Oh, okay.
To know whether the structure of the house, there's any fault, there's any problem or anything. When I had spoken with the vendor and I had gone to the house and all that, they had all their documents, even though my solicitor collected every single document under the surface of the earth. The bank then came to do the valuation of the house to say this is how much we think the house is valued at.
Okay.
And that's what then determines. For example, you see a house on the market, 500,000. The bank can come and tell you that that house is valued at 350. That means that if you still want to get that house, the 150 on top, plus the money plus the deficit or whatever the bank can lend you, is what will come. The bank does an evaluation and says this is how much the house is valued at. The bank decides on your salary and says this is how much we can lend you based on your salary. Then the bank then decides this is how much percentage deposit you have to put down, especially with COVID and all these uncertainties and everything. And that is not to discourage you. It's just to let you know that these are the things that are available. So if you see a house of 500 and you look at the prices of the houses around there, if the houses are priced 400 or that range, don't be afraid to tell the vendor that you are not paying anything more than 400. It's like Balogun market.
You can bargain. That's some good news because usually in the UK you can't bargain, like everything is fixed. So it's good to know that you can bargain your way.
So that you don't get to the stage of going to the bank and then they now bring you back to square one because of the amount that value the house at. So always look at how much are the houses in that area valued at. Similar houses in that similar area with whatever similar updates or upgrades or renovations or things that they've done, how much were those houses sold for in recent times? So when you say, how do you get a mortgage from the bank, is multifaceted and it involves a lot of information gathering and, pulling things together so that by the time you're now ready to get a mortgage from the bank, and to put in your application, you almost have everything that they need.
That was so helpful. I'll just do a quick summary. Okay. You've said a lot. So to get your mortgage, let me start with the mortgage part. So you need to make sure that your credit score is good and try to find a way to track it. You can use Experian, like you mentioned, like the credit score tracker. Make sure that you avoid anything that will impact your credit score. Also, make sure you're on the electoral register if you aren't. Then when you are saving your deposits, usually 10-15%, always save more than that. For instance, you can save 20 if possible, just to make up for it. You never know. And always be prepared for anybody can pull out. Like you said, the vendor can pull out, the bank can pull out. Always be prepared. It doesn't mean you should give up. And what else? Get a solicitor. I think that advice is very important, like you said. So it depends on you if you want to, go with the bank's panel of solicitors, or I think you should still have your solicitor, because I think I really like how your solicitor stood up for you, which is very good. You can get a surveyor if you want. And what else am I missing out? I think that's a summary basically of.
Yeah, and this principle.
Doesn't mean they will lend you, but they are willing to lend you. And also note that when you're ready to get your mortgage, it's not necessarily from your bank. It may be a mortgage broker or in any other bank, basically. So I think I summed it up well. Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you so much, Dr. Abaye, for coming today.
Yeah, great job you're doing out there. Documenting the different, information that people need. It's just fantastic. Well done. Keep it up.
Thank you.